Hi, I'm Tom Stevenson and welcome to Microsoft Project Made Easy. Today we're going to be looking at creating a resource pool. And what exactly is a resource pool? Well, a resource pool is a set or a table of resources that you can share in multiple files. So normally, if you're doing an individual project, you create a resource table and you have all those resources that you apply to that one project. Well, a resource pool, you create the table once and you share it amongst your projects. This can work really well if you share projects and you have a listing of resources that you typically will utilize. You can see if there's overallocations across projects of somebody, maybe where they're on more than one project at the same time. It can show if you've assigned them too heavily or too much to a particular project. It also can be quite helpful if you just manage a smaller company and you want to watch your projects and you want to just have the one set of resources and see how they're interacting project to project. It can get quite complicated or it can be fairly simple depending on the type of business that you're running and how your Microsoft project is set up and utilized within the business. It's not difficult to actually share the resources, though. That's a pretty easy task to do. So that's what we'll look at today. In our previous video, we looked at creating a master project file, which was kind of a similar idea in the sense that you could create a file which would be your master project, and then you could insert sub-projects into it, which would be your individual projects, and then you could see how they're all working together. So this is just another added function that you can do in that regard. So what I've done is I've just created a simple listing here. Maybe I'll make the text a little bit bigger so that you can see it maybe better. I'll make that 14, so there, and I'll just move this across here. There, that's a little bit bigger that you can see it. So I've created this simple sort of project and I called it Project 1. And what I've actually done is I've created 3 projects, Project 1, Project 2, Project 3. So we're assuming you've got 3 projects on the go in this example. And I'll just click the save on that. I'm going to go File and I'm going to go New and I'm going to select a blank project. So I've got this blank project, and if you're going to create a resource pool, what I would suggest you do is you create the pool in just a plain blank project. And I'm just going to do a file save as right now. So I'll go File, and I'll go Save. And you see I've created a folder called Resource Pool, so I'm going to open that up. I've got those other 3 projects in it, and I'm just going to call this Resource Pool. All right, and I'm going to save that so I have them all nested together. And I'm going to slide to the left and go to the resource sheet that we normally go to. And so we've got the resource sheet. And so there it is. And I'm going to go, I think again, I'm going to make my text a little bit bigger. I'm going to keep this simple as far as creating resources because we've done this in other videos. And by the way, you can click subscribe. If you go to my Microsoft project playlist, you'll see that there's all kinds of other videos right from the very beginning to adding resources and cost and all those other elements. This is a little bit more advanced topic when we're talking about adding a resource pool. So we'll keep the content fairly simple from this perspective. And I'll create, let's say, we'll call it plumber, we'll call it HVAC sub, we'll call it carpenter, and maybe we'll call it PM. And maybe I'll call these 2, just to keep things a little bit different, we'll make those costs, and we'll keep these 2 as work, and we'll say $50 an hour, and we'll say $70 an hour here. And so we've created a pretty simple resource table. Now you could imagine though, like say you were a construction company, you could have 100 resources that you may or may not use on a particular project, but you could sort of have this standard listing of everybody, of your employees, of your different positions and subtrades and suppliers that you deal with. And really, this is separate until you actually share those resources and apply those resources to individual projects. So you would create this once, you have it in that particular folder, and what you could then do is you could go, and I'm going to go File. Let's see, actually, I'm going to go down below. I'm going to go up here. I'm going to open my project number 1. And so I've got project number 1 that I created before with my activities. I have not got any resources in here. I could have some resources in here if I wanted to. Maybe they're unique ones to this particular project. But right now I don't have any resources in there, as you can see. And so your typical way would be you go to resources, you go to assign resources, and then you would pick your resources. But I don't have any here because I haven't created them in this project. So an alternative when we're creating a resource pool is under the resource tab, you go resource pool and you go share resources. So you select share resources and then it gives you an option. Use your own resources. Well, that's the default. So we don't have any of our own created right now. Use resources requires at least one open resource pool. So I would have to have the resource pool open. Now, if I click here, I do have it open. I've got my other projects open, project 2 and project 3, but I've also got that resource pool open. Now, if I created resources in project 2 and I wanted to share them with project 1, I could also do that. Probably best, as I said, name it something like resource pool and don't have another project in it. Just utilize that for your resources. It's a little bit simpler to manage from that perspective. So I've identified that file, and then you have a choice. Pool takes precedence or sharer takes precedence. And likely what you want to do is have that, you've got the sharer file takes precedence, or you can select pool that takes precedence if there's a conflict with something. So likely you want to say that the pool takes precedence over the sharer file. But again, it just depends which one you want to have take precedence. This is especially where you've got already existing resources. I have none in this, so it makes sense for me to say pool takes precedence. If I have other resources that's just unique to this project, and that if there's a conflict, say you name 2 of them the same as the pool, which one should take precedence, right? So I'm going to have the pool takes precedence. If the pool takes precedence, then say changes are made to the hourly rate in the pool. Well, that's going to change here as well. Just keep that in mind too. So I'm going to click OK. And nothing happens here, of course. Although if I go to my Gantt chart and I right click and I go down to my resource sheet, I should see those resources there, right? So I can now see those resources there. If I slide back and I go to my Gantt chart, then I've got nothing applied yet, but what I can do is I can assign resources now. They should show up. Remember before they didn't. And so I can select here, I could select project manager, and I could assign the project manager to the project because it's an hourly rate. It puts in the hourly rate that we had said. I think $70 an hour is what I had. The carpenter, let's say assigned to task 1, assign the carpenter. And let's say that I've got the HVAC sub and I want to assign them to this project, to task 2, and I want to say $10,000 is what I'll be paying them out at that point. So I could assign these various resources to these activities. So you get the gist of how this actually works. This part now is just working like it normally does in adding resources. It's just that we're using this pool file that we have. All right, so I've assigned those, and if I go to my cost sheet, I should be able to see the total costs that have been incurred so far by adding these resources in place. So I get that information there. Now, I should be able to, if I go File, Open, if I go to Resource Pool, now I've got that resource pool. I've got those items. They're still standard in there, so they're still sitting in there. Nothing has happened to them. I could go File, open and I could go to project 2. All right, so now I'm going to project 2 and same thing. I haven't got any resources here, or shouldn't have any resources here. So I go there, it's blank. And if I go back to my Gantt chart, I can go to my resource tab here. I can go to assign resources and it's blank, just like it was before. Again, if I go to resource pool, select, pull it down, share resources, use resources, select it from that pool. Remember, it might not come up if you've got other files open at the same time. It might show the other files first, so just pull that down. Make sure you select the resource pool. It's only showing resource pool because I named it that. So whatever you've named that file, be looking for that file. And again, it won't show up there if you've got it closed. So it has to be open. And so if you're wondering, where is it? Maybe you didn't open it, or maybe it got shut. On conflict with calendar, I'm going to say that the pool takes precedence again. I'm going to click OK. And again, now if I go to assign resources, I should see them there, and I'm going to assign the actually I assigned the PM to the project. Let's see what happens when we do that. So I'm going to assign the PM to the project. I've got 42,000. Look at that, over allocated. Well, we know why that is, because we said there's only one project manager and it's a resource pool, and now these dates, although they're slightly different, they must be overlapping, and that's telling us that we have an over allocation of that particular resource. So that can be a distinct advantage there, that we could see, oh, we've got something going on between our projects and it's over allocated. This is where, again, if you've already created, or you create a master project file, then you can actually look at them in the master project file and see how or where those over allocations are occurring. That's another benefit of doing that. I'll do the same thing with Carpenter. I can't remember if we did it on the first task. If we did, it should show over allocated as well. I changed the dates a little bit, but not a whole lot, so it's very possible they're overlapping those dates. And maybe we'll put the HVAC sub. This won't show an over allocation because it is a cost as a subcontractor, so that will go through okay. Plumbing sub, we'll assign that, and we'll put a cost there, and we'll say $30,000, let's say here. And so we've assigned those. If we close this, we can check on the cost table, and we'll see that we've got a different kind of costing going on here. If we go to our individual resource sheet, we should see these over allocations that are taking place. If I go back, and again, I could do this different ways. I could go to view, I could go to switch windows, see, so I've got my projects that are listed there. I could go to the resource pool, and we can see in that individual resource pool that's showing my over allocations there. The other thing I could do is I could go file, just to give you a quick recap on creating the master project file that I did in the previous video. Now that you know that, or if you want more step-by-step on that, you can check that out. That would be tutorial, I think it's 15 or 14. You can see it on the playlist, but I just created, I'm going to call this file, save as, and I'm going to save this in that resource pool this time, and I'm going to call it a master project file. I'm going to click save. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the project tab. I'm going to go see where it says sub-project. And I'm in the resource pool, folder that I created. I'm going to insert 1, 2, 3. These 3 projects, I'm going to insert them. You could make them read only, but I'm going to make them just regular. And so I'm going to insert them all. And now I've inserted those 3 projects in place. And now I can actually view what's going on. And I could see more readily if there is an over allocation. So where those over allocations might be taking place. Well, I can see here I've got the carpenter and the carpenter starting at the same time in projects 2 and projects 1, I can see that if we actually take a look, I assigned the PM2 on those 2 projects there. I haven't done project number 3 yet, right? So I haven't assigned any resources to project 3. I only did it to projects 1 and 2, but I can see where the overlaps are in play at that point. And actually, if I even go into my the resource sheet, let's see what that looks like. I can see those resource pools in that master project file. I can see them showing up in that way. So it can be helpful to review a multitude of projects and see what's going on. I could also, as we said, in a master project file, I can actually make changes to my durations, and it'll change the original project file as well. The other thing I could do is I could go back, and what I should do before I do this, I would say, is I would go back to my project 3, go file. Actually, I'll do it the way I was showing you before. I'm just going to go to the View tab, and I'm going to pull down where it says Switch Windows. I'm going to go to Project 3, and in Project 3, I'm going to do that same thing. So I'm going to assign pool, share resources, use resources, and I better pick resource pool, not master project. See how it showed the current one? That's not what I wanted. I wanted to share it from the resource pool. Pool takes precedence. And then again, I could have assign resources. I could put the PM, assign. Maybe I'll put that carpenter again on task 1, keep that over allocation going. And this time it's not, because this one, the date is offset. So it's not actually over allocating, I guess, on that stage. So this one's actually not causing that same problem we saw in the other one. So it's not red on this project. But if we go back now and we oh, it's already open, so I'll just go here. If we go back and we go switch windows and we go back to that master project file, now you see how the PM is there, the carpenter is there, but the carpenter is quite delayed, like quite an offset on this particular project, so it's not overlapping the same way, which is fine. And again, you could troubleshoot some of this. You could go down to your resource sheet. You could look at this and say, what if I had 200%? If I had 200%, that gets rid of that over allocation. So we're going to hire another carpenter. And what if I assigned, you could get into this, like another PM, different things to the project to not cause this issue. If you wanted to, you could actually go back and look at, okay, well, we've got the same PM on 2 projects. We better assign a different PM to this project. Or you could go back into your assignment of the PM and assign maybe the PM 50% on this project, 50% on this project, maybe assign a different PM because they would end up overlapping at this point. But that's the nice thing. It gives you sort of a global aspect of looking at multiple projects. If you're really just focusing in on one project at a time, none of this is really necessary. But if you are wanting to get sort of a macro view of your projects, this is a good way of getting a macro view. For me personally, I would probably still be doing most of my work in the individual project files, so that usually when I'm in a project, but then maybe I want to have a global look at what's going on. There may be other reasons like reports. You want to amalgamate different reports. Maybe you want to look at cash flow and how much is going out from all your projects overlapping at different times because you have to negotiate some financing at the bank, etc. Those are reasons why this can be quite useful. And so it's nice to know that you can do this that way. The other thing is it's good to test it out, and I would always keep it in a folder. So if you're using a cloud-based storage, I would keep them in the same folder in a cloud-based folder for that purpose. So that's what I wanted to cover today. Hopefully that's given you a good idea of how resource pools look and then how we can interconnect it with the master project file, which I just did in the previous video. So I'm Tom Stevenson, just going to sign off, but before I do, if you enjoyed this video or if you have questions, comments, please feel free to do so. If you liked it, click the like button, click the subscribe button, and that always helps out. and the notifications so you can see more videos as they come up, and check out the playlists on my channel. So Tom Stevenson wishing you a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.